So the world of college football is changing a lot right now. We've had the playoff start this year. The expanded playoff rather start this year. We have had the transfer portal continue to evolve. We have had NIL evolve. We have had conference realignment. And so I went to the socials and asked y'all, man, what is going to be some changes that you would bet on seeing in the next 3 years when it comes to the world of college football? And I got a couple of these that I want to get off my chest here and kind of call our shot before we get rolling. The first is the most obvious, and a lot of y'all kind of alluded to this as well, but we're going to see more teams in the playoff. We will. Now, will it be in 2025? I would bet no, just given the current structure. It sounds like we're pretty locked into this format we have right now, and there's a lot of dollars changing hands, which I guess is what this whole thing is about. But like the problem with this playoff expanding and why we're against the playoff expanding is what I've said many times on this show. Like, there's nobody driving college football. A lot of passengers, a lot of us on this vehicle, headed down the highway. Clear down 55 South, whatever highway you're on. And there's nobody actually steering this thing. Everyone's just sort of acting in their own best interest. And so the people that are able to dictate the playoff are TV people, money people, people that wear suits and ties to work every single day. If that's you, more power to you. But the people that make these decisions, it's exactly their day of life. So with that being said, why would you ever, if you're making these decisions, put less teams into a playoff field that is telling you, hey, give us more of an inventory, we'll give you more money? Okay, yeah, more money, more problems, cool, let's roll with that. So we're against this. I've said this many times. I think the more you expand the playoff, the more you water down what has made college football, which is the regular season. So we're against that. But again, we don't have a commissioner. We have nobody driving this bus. I've seen several people throw their hats in the rings for the commissioner role, and we're not throwing our hat in the ring. We're cool sitting back here talking about it and enjoying the product that it is. But we do think someone needs to take the reins here and oversee this thing. All right, so it's going to expand. I would bet it's 14. I don't think from this past season you can make a case for expanding to more than adding two-ish teams to this whole deal, just especially with how the first round went. And that to me is going to be very interesting to see how they move forward from that. Now, within that, I think the conference championships is going to change within the next couple of years. And the reason why I feel this way is there's been too much discussion from too many people of importance, whether it be head coaches, whether it be commissioners. It happens a lot on television. The people that, have these 4-letter networks or 3-letter networks that broadcast this thing and have a lot to do with the TV deals. Everyone is so geared towards the college football playoff right now, which, again, we are pro regular season, but given the context of this discussion, this is where we're all looking right now is the college football playoff. Can you make the dance? Can you get yourself in the best position to make a run when you get to the dance? All those things are true. And at this point in time now, with conference championships, is Georgia not better off for not playing in the SEC championship? Now, you won the SEC. Good luck telling everyone in Athens to not play for the SEC title and to take that game off or whatever, because there's a bunch of competitors out there, and I appreciate that from Kirby Smart. But roll with me here for a second. Regardless of what you think about Carson Beck, if he were to play against Notre Dame, I'm not telling you Georgia wins, but do you not have a different level of confidence potentially playing with your quarterback you've played with all year long? I'm just saying, I think that's maybe worth unpacking. So I'm not saying you do away with conference championships, just period. But I do think there is something to be said for that conference championship maybe evolving a little bit. Maybe you have a regular season champ, and then you have a couple of teams play for a play-in spot. Maybe it's the 2 and 3 team playing for a spot in the college football playoff. What I think we all kind of agree is going to happen is as this playoff expands, see evolution number 1 that's coming on this list, there's going to be, I think, the big dogs in the sport, the SEC and the Big Ten, sit down at the bargaining table and say, here's the deal. We want this many spots. Take it or leave it. Maybe it's not as blunt as that, but that's about how I see that discussion going. Now, a lot of y'all are hearing me say these words. You're like, this guy's a freaking SEC bias, Big Ten homer. And I'm like, whoa. Hey, just roll with me here. Regardless of what you think my investment is with these different conferences, whatever you think, I see a lot of the takes out there is like, these conferences writing these guys checks. You're welcome to believe whatever you want to believe. I'm telling you that's not the case. But what I would say is with the Big Ten and the SEC, those are the two conferences with the schools that generate the most revenue. They draw the eyeballs. Like you're going to the concert, they're the one playing the show. And that's not me down on the Big 12. That's not me down on the ACC. That's just the reality. So when you sit down to talk about the college football playoff and the product that it is, The Big Ten and the SEC is saying, hey, listen, we need 3 spots, guaranteed, minimum. We need 4 spots, guaranteed, minimum. When we expand this thing, you make sure that we have a seat at the table because, quite frankly, we're paying for a lot of this party. We're going to pick what the seating chart is. So I'm not telling you that's right. I'm not telling you that I'm for that. But what I am saying is I think that's right around the corner with how this playoff expands and how we ultimately adjust conference title games. Because if I have the SEC or the Big Ten that's saying, hey, we get 4 spots for sure, the regular season champ, the team that went through the gauntlet of whatever that regular season is in the Big Ten or the SEC, they're not playing an extra weekend. If I'm the conference commissioner and I want to have the best chance possible for one of my teams to win the national championship, I'm not having my best team put more strain on their bodies, all right? Just full stop. So I think you could have a play-in situation. That is a very interesting conversation to have in itself of what does the conference title weekend look like. But all in all, there'll be games played on conference title weekend. What will they be? Who knows? But it's going to be interesting to see how that whole thing evolves. Quick footnote, though, on the college football playoff in itself, as we're talking about how it's going to evolve with spots and auto bids and all that. I think the psychology of the committee is going to evolve. One, because we're going to see this whole committee change people in general, because the average term you serve there is 3 years. But I wonder a little bit, I'm not telling you this is my opinion, but I wonder if this happens, if we see games like Penn State SMU happen, and the committee says, again, I have no issue with SMU being in the playoff, but if the committee says, if this is a TV product, and we're trying to act in the best interests of, potentially our pockets, was SMU the best team to have in there? I'm using this purely as an example, so roll with me here. Maybe, just maybe, the psychology evolves to where it's like, hey, actually, wins matter, 100% they matter. But I think how you look in those wins and the path you took to get those wins also matters. Now, notice, I did not say a word about the Big Ten, did not say a word about the SEC. I'm just saying the rigor of your schedule, I wonder if the committee, after seeing some of these first-round games, starts to pivot a little bit with how they evaluate teams when it comes to this 12-team, eventually 14 field. And this wouldn't be like a new thought for the committee, just so we're all aligned here. Like the committee has viewed things in a hypothetical sense before. Ask Florida State. Lose your quarterback. They see what they are without Jordan Travis. They see how they're winning games without him in the game, and they're like, all right, listen, hey, Florida State, we appreciate you and what you've done, but we don't think you're a team that belongs in the 14 playoff. That's an extreme example, and I'm not saying injuries should play all the way into it, but there is something to a little bit of, again, hypotheticals is kind of what college football in a lot of ways has been built on over the course of its history. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's a part of the fabric of the sport, and I think it'll factor in when it comes to how they evolve here with selecting teams. Again, not telling you it's SEC and Big Ten, but I am telling you that the committee could very well evolve in how they perceive that. Now, another change is coming, man. The transfer portal calendar, it's already changed. It's still going to change. They've changed the window for the winter portal cycle from 45 days to 30 days. The spring window is 10 days. To me, this is a matter of common sense and just a matter of how quickly can we get the logistics in place to follow the common sense. Everyone is saying the same thing. Hey, listen, this is not sustainable. We're going to lose good people from college football. They already have, whether it be personnel or coaches. We're going to, quite frankly, have trouble if we're in the college football playoff or playing for a conference championship to help ourselves for the next season because we're trying to get prepped for a playoff game, but we're also trying to recruit this stud wide receiver out of the portal. We can't do both to the best of our abilities. This is not a winning situation. And then third, I think it puts the power all the way out of whack, which I think is the most important part of this when it comes to the player to coach or school, rather, back and forth. And hear me clearly, I am pro-player as it gets, man. I'm pro-NIL. I'm pro-players getting paid millions if they're worth that. I'm extremely pro-player. But what I think is tricky about this whole situation with the portal is having 30 days during the winter to decide if you're going to stay or go from a school. You're not taking 30 days to decide. You're having 30 days to provide leverage and to do different things that are, quite frankly, maybe a little bit unsavory in some ways when it comes to your discussions with schools, probably even before the season is over. You don't need 30 days. Like 30 days essentially holds a coach hostage, which I don't think necessarily is the best path forward. Let's shut that down to like 2 weeks, man. You need more than 2 weeks to decide what you're going to do for the next year of your career. I mean, 14 days? I don't think so. That to me feels like a stretch. I think you cut it down. I think you see it cut down pretty significantly. And the reason, again, with the common sense part of this, why we're going to see this happen, is you have so many voices that matter in this sport that are essentially saying, hey, this has to change. Like, I've held this belief for a long time. The life cycle of an idea becoming a reality in the world of college football is as follows. Starts as a good thought, starts as a rumbling, whether it be in-house between staffs or whether it's, kind of finding its way into the media world. And then eventually you have major voices saying it. It was this way with revenue sharing as well. You had Nick Saban saying, yeah, there's a lot of TV money. Players probably should get paid. Jim Harbaugh said that last year at the national championship game during media days. What happened now? We're on the doorstep of revenue sharing. So, again, I think this is sort of in that stage where the most important voices are saying this good idea out loud. Hey, we need to shrink the portal. I think that's going to happen here in the next 3 years. The portal is also brand new, man. It was a reality in 2018. Like in 2018, 6 years? Things evolve in less time than that. I mean, the iPhone, I think, in its first 6 years still had a home button on it, man. Like, we're still in the home button phase of this whole thing when it comes to what the transfer portal is. Last thing that I think is worth discussing, a lot of y'all, in responding to this tweet that I put out saying, hey, what's the changes coming in college football? A lot of y'all said salary cap. And I see where you're coming from. Because what we just alluded to, revenue sharing is going to start in July of 2025. Sounds like there'll be, give or take, $20 million allocated to these different schools, depending on the conference and things of that nature. I think the misconception with salary cap, and the reason why me personally, I'm anti-salary cap, is because there's this idea that it somehow like helps the little guy. Hey, help the Cornells of the world. Again, I'm using my alma mater here just to kind of give us a good gauge for how I feel about this. Help those schools that maybe don't have as much money to begin with, and maybe limit the big boys. Don't let them have 20 million. Like, everybody gets the same amount. We'll go from there, and that'll make sure it's the most fair sport possible. One, that's never how college football has worked. I mean, it's always been a matter of resources and being able to recruit with those resources, whether it's actual dollars and cents or it's facilities. That's the first part. The other part of this is you're actually hamstringing the little guy. Like, if I'm Cornell and I have the same amount of money as an Ohio State, there is very few worlds where a recruit is going to pick Cornell over Ohio State. Full stop. That's the reality. Why? Because the development, the history, NFL track record, the coaching staff, all those things. And I love my alma mater, but like, that's the reality, man. So what you could do, actually, I think, without the salary cap, if I'm Cornell, I say, let's get $100 million together. Again, I'm using a wild number here because I think it illustrates the point well. Let's get $100 million together. Let's go buy the best roster money can buy, and then we're going to compete with the big boys. Then we can go beat the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the whoever's. Giving them the same money doesn't change the playing field. It just means the big boys stay the big boys, just so we're all aligned there. So I understand the salary cap thought. I think it's a fair thought to have, but I don't think it actually accomplishes what we're hoping it would accomplish if we're rooting for the salary cap. So those are the changes we see coming in college football. Again, I think a lot of those are happening. All of those are happening, I think, in the next 3 years. And curious to hear from y'all in the comment section and on my socials at JD PicKell.